Hey, what's up everybody? Back for another regs video. I know you're probably thinking, man, how far can we go deep into this? But it's actually pretty deep worth of stuff here. So without further delay, let's get on board with the 6193 and let's wrap this up today. There's been a couple of other installments of this video where we had the overview of it back on, I think it was video 4, and then we talked about specifically the part A and in part 5, and then we talked about 6193 Bravo in FAR part 6 video. So now we're on to explaining like the normality, like the norm. So if someone has just soloed, they've done like their 3 times in the pattern, they may have gone out in the practice area, but now as an instructor you're getting started to work with them on their cross-country training. So we have to ask ourselves a question: what category of aircraft are we going to do, and what's the make and model aircraft that we're going to do? When I say do, I'm talking about training is what I'm talking about. So let's look at the regs and see what they're talking about. So we're here on 6193, and we'll just scroll down to paragraph Charlie, which is where we're going to be today. And on paragraph Charlie it says endorsements for solo cross-country flights except as specified in paragraph B2, which we talked about in our last video. A student pilot must have the endorsement prescribed in this paragraph for each cross-country flight. So although it says for each cross-country flight, that means that the instructor must check to make sure that this actually is in their logbook for each flight. And why does the reg say that? Why does it say for each cross-country flight? Well, because you're going to give 2 endorsements for the solo. You're going to give one saying that you've trained it in the category and make and model, and then the other one you're going to give for each individual flight. So once I give, if I give someone a solo endorsement for cross country for that one particular flight, then I must have went back and checked everything to make sure that they're actually prepared and proficient to make that flight, have all the endorsements. And we'll talk about that in our next video, like what you must check for as a flight instructor before sending someone on a solo cross country. I have a dedicated video just for that. So in this particular instance here, it says that of course must have these endorsements for each cross country flight. So Charlie 1 says a student pilot must have a solo cross country endorsement from an authorized instructor who conducted the training that is placed in that person's logbook for the specific category of aircraft to be flown. So this is usually just given one time, because if somebody's flying airplanes, that's the category. If they're doing rotorcraft, that's the category. If they're doing gliders, that's the category. So just for the category, they would have that. Now number 2 says a student pilot must have a solo cross-country endorsement from an authorized instructor that is placed in that person's logbook for the specific make and model of aircraft to be flown. Make and model. So in the advisory circular 6165, it actually combines Charlie 1 and Charlie 2 into one single endorsement. And because of that, it kind of causes some factors if the person ever changes the aircraft from one make and model to another make and model during their solo period. Now normally this is never the case, but if this ever happens, all you would need to do is basically rewrite the Charlie 2 endorsement. Rewrite this endorsement to reflect the make and model of aircraft that is actually going to be flown on the cross-country endorsement. Now when you do this, what's going to happen is you're going to literally change the way that the 87s are written as well, because now we have to go back to the 87s and give a new endorsement for that make and model if it wasn't already given. Now if that doesn't make sense to you, let's try this another way. So in 6187, that's where we have to train the person to solo, and that is specific to category, make and model. In the cross country, specific to category, make and model. So if we change during the cross country phase the make and model, then we have to go back and reissue the solo endorsements. The reason for that is because it is a requirement for you as an instructor to check the 87 endorsements, the 61.87 endorsements, prior to giving them permission to solo cross-country. You have to go back and check these endorsements to make sure they're valid. So once you've done the training, then you can give a Charlie 1 and a Charlie 2 So what is the training? Well, we talked about this in the last video, but let's actually look and see what the training is. So of course, paragraph Charlie is what we're talking about today, and that's that paragraph there. Of course, it does go all the way down to there. Excuse me. So that's all the paragraph Charlie, what we're going to discuss today. But if we skip down past Delta, which is going to be our next video, and we go down to Echo, we can see that Echo is maneuvers and procedures for cross-country flight training in a single-engine airplane. So if I'm getting ready to cross-country train someone in a single-engine airplane, this is all the things that I have to do for them. Use of aeronautical charts for VFR navigation using pilotage and dead reckoning with the aid of a magnetic compass. What's the difference between pilotage and dead reckoning? Do you know the difference between those? Yeah. So dead reckoning is like you're planning. Like if you're doing like a navlog or a diversion, those are good examples of dead reckoning. Like we say in the South, I dead reckon that's how we're going to get there. Well, that was a stupid joke. Anyway. And then pilotage is just looking outside the airplane and just saying, yep, there's a road. And you look at your chart. Yep, there's the road. Yep, there's the power line. Yep, there's the power line. So I'm right where I need to be. That's pilotage, looking outside and actually flying. There's a little bit of brief ground school for you there. And then, of course, all this other stuff, performance, weather, emergency procedures, traffic, collision avoidance, just all the stuff here all the way down to number 12. If you're going to do cross-country solo for a multi-engine, then this is all the things you have to do in a multi-engine. So you just keep going on down this different categories. You go all the way down through 93. There's nothing else at the end of this reg. So there's basically, we've kind of covered everything except for Delta, which we'll do in the next video. So let's scroll back up to Charlie to make sure we finish talking about everything. And let's see here. We are, did I pass it? I did. So we are right here now. There's a lot of words in it. Jesus, got to make sure you weed through this stuff pretty good. So now we've done the training. We've given them the Charlie 1, Charlie 2 endorsement in their logbook, which is found in their advisory circular. And so what do we do now? Well, what we do now is we have the person prepare a cross-country flight plan for us, and we send them cross-country. So we've done all this training with them. We've done a couple of dual cross-countries with them, and everything seems to be working pretty good. So now we're ready for them to actually go on their solo cross-country. So we tell them to plan a navlog and to do all their performance stuff, and then when they come in, we look at all their stuff, and if everything looks good and the weather looks good, then for each cross-country flight, the authorized instructor who reviews the cross-country planning must make an endorsement in the person's logbook after reviewing that person's cross-country planning as specified in paragraph D of this section, which is going to be on the next video. And that endorsement must specify the make and model, state that the student's pre-flight planning is correct, and state any limitations required by the student's authorized instructor, which means that the student's authorized instructor may actually be another instructor. So you want to make sure that if they've actually given this in Charlie 3 endorsement before, that you actually don't override any of the endorsements that that instructor has given. You can be more strict, but you can't be less restrictive. Of course, that is also in a letter of interpretation as well from the FAA, stating that you can't be less restrictive than what the actual authorized instructor for them have given it. So that is how that works there. Now, if you want to look at the advisory circular and actually see this endorsement for the Charlie 1, Charlie 2 endorsement, that is what I refer to as the Alpha 9 endorsement. So if you go to the advisory circular, you go to Appendix A, and you look at A.9, and that is the Charlie 1, Charlie 2 endorsement. I certify that Joe Dirt has received the required solo cross-country training. I find that they meet the applicable requirements of 6193, and they are proficient to make solo cross-countries in a make and model aircraft and aircraft category, signed and dated with your name. And then the Charlie 3 endorsement, which they could have multiple ones. They're probably going to have at least 2 or more. That's your Alpha 10 endorsement. And that's a little bit more complicated. It's going to actually read that you've reviewed the cross-country planning of the first name, middle initial, last name. I found the planning and preparation to be correct to make the solo flight from the airport that they originated from to all the way back to that originating airport. So like if you departed from Lawrenceville to Lawrenceville via, and then the route of the flight. So any stops they're going to make would be the route of the flight, with landings at any airports they're going to make a landing at, in the make and model airplane, and you have to date it. And remember that that endorsement is only good for that day, that flight. That day, that flight. So if they don't have a night endorsement, they've got to be back on the ground before night falls, which means that you can't send them cross country at 4 o'clock p.m. in the winter here in Georgia, because they're not going to make it if it's a 2-hour cross country. It's going to be dark by the time they get back. Okay, cool. So that is the Charlie 3, and that's it for the Charlie 3. If you have any questions whatsoever, post it right down below. Click the like button, slam the subscribe button, click on the little bell off to the side. You'll get notified when I post new videos. That's all I got. Hope I wasn't talking too fast, but I'm really trying to keep these videos down to like 6 or 10 minutes. And man, is this very hard, because this FAR stuff is so juicy. You can really get kind of lost in time. Thanks so much. And remember, as always, it's not hard as long as you have a great instructor. See ya.